Hello, everyone. This is Marge from Tales from the Catalogs, and I'm super excited that we all made it to the eighth episode of season 2. So we're only 2 episodes left before the season ends, and I hope it has been a fun ride for everyone as much as it has been a fun ride for all of us here in the TFTC crew. For this episode, we're actually taking you back to a familiar rite of passage that most people go through in their lives, and it's a graduation ceremony, but with a twist. If you are currently working hard to get that diploma or to get out of your school, I'm rooting for you. Study smart, work smart, and don't forget to have fun on your journey while you're in school. And yeah, I hope that you are able to enjoy this episode as much as I loved writing it and making it as well. It holds a very special place to me since one of the characters here is inspired by one of the most important people in my life. And yeah, let's get on with the episode. Disclaimer: this is a work of fiction. Any and all names or places that match real life are purely coincidental. To your right, there is a door. Once you cross this threshold, you shall weave your life with the threads of your unbecoming. It will unfold before you, grasp you, and you have no choice but to hold its darkness. For in darkness, we have reason to find the light.
I grew up surrounded by worry. Ever since I was a kid, I was told that the only thing I needed to focus on was graduating. The rest I can worry about after. Everything I did, everything I worked for, was for the sake of graduating. It seemed everybody in this room did. You can't help but worry about everything when you're graduating. It's all fun and games until you ask yourself where you're going to be after you turn the tassel. It's all studies, exams, and backlogs until you start worrying about where to submit your resume next. You learn all of these things, only for everything else to become a blur the moment you step out of the campus. I grew up surrounded by worry. I grew up worried. Growing up, caught in not knowing what was going to happen to me, I often got a lot of comments from teachers and relatives. Loosen up, relax, have some fun. Don't worry. I thought of different ways to loosen up. Join a club, maybe theater, write for the school paper, news, most likely. Participate in competitions, perhaps in groups. These seemed like fun things. Everybody made it look fun. There was something about seeing a peer so fulfilled and satisfied to be celebrated or seen for something they have done. However, the worry simply stayed. Am I talented enough to act? Is my writing profound enough? What if I messed up and failed and lost? So I didn't do any of those. I always thought that life would be so much better if I just didn't worry. Maybe then I'd have fun. Maybe I'd be more outgoing with people. Yet with worrying, I felt like I had control. Less bad things happened to me because I was worried. I felt like negativity was boxed closed because I weighed every con heavier than a pro. I was worried, and I was safe. I just want to eat everybody's time with a story. This isn't one of those boring speeches you get in graduation ceremonies. It's a story everyone knows. Everyone is familiar with it. Everyone's been talking about it for the past few days. So I want to talk about that here, no matter how long it may take. Time doesn't matter here. At least, it won't matter after the speech is done. The morning of June 19th, I had just gotten in a van with my friends on a road trip to go hiking in a local Santa Lucina peak. It was 3 weeks before our graduation ceremony, and they had been planning this get-together since the beginning of the second semester. Everyone was excited. Some of my friends who aren't from the area really saved up to go. I didn't think much of it at the time, but maybe going would be good for me. We were on the last leg of research studies and almost everything had been done. Recs were submitted, documents were filed. We were all just basically waiting to turn the tassel. I had been there when I was a kid with my mom, but we always got an earful from my Lola, who always thought that the mountain peak had some sort of bad energy, considering that's where most vehicular accidents occur. I live with my Lola. It's only been the two of us in the house when my mom decided to work overseas. Of course, I got an earful from her when I told her I was going on a hiking trip. She always believed that there was something going on in the mountains. They used to believe that the mountains in Santa Lucina were home to elementals and other supernatural beings, and that going there was always dangerous. And just a few months ago, there was a bus accident on one of the main routes of the mountain. Almost 11 people were killed with how that bus swerved off the cliffside. It's the point my Lola kept using against me to tell me not to go through with the trip. This was the worry I grew up surrounded by. I mean, I get it, you know? I'm literally the only person she's living with at home, and knowing that I'm out a lot for university, she can't help but worry. I worry for her sometimes too, but it's all we both know. Worry. For a single moment, I wanted to not worry. I actually wanted to enjoy something small, like a hiking trip with some classmates, and probably experience something I will never be able to experience again in my age. So I told her that. I told her I wanted a day where I'm not burdened by my own doubts. A day where I get to live as I should be living. The funny thing is, fate can be very, very cruel. The day I decided to not worry was a day I should have been worried. I woke up pretty early that day. Lola had been up my ass the past week because of this trip, telling me not to go because she had a bad feeling. I had to tell her that these things don't happen often and that I'm not going to be 20 and on a college trip with my friends again. For the first time in my life, I wanted to actually not think of the bad things. I tried not to think of them as I double checked my backpack. I tried not to think of them as I went downstairs to the kitchen to see that the rice had already been done. There was food on the table, some warm soup, chorizo, and eggs. I would know that it was freshly prepared. Seeing the smoke waft from the rice pot as soon as I opened the lid, my empty lunchbox was also set on the table, flipped upside down as if it was just washed to dry up. It reminded me of school mornings, where Lola would get up before everyone else did and made sure everything was prepared and ready. However, my grandma was nowhere to be found. She's always up and moving at 5 in the morning, and it felt odd that she wasn't there. I assumed she had gotten up to make the food and went back to sleep. It somehow made me feel bad, though. The entire week she had been so worried I was going away for a trip, but somehow she still got up on the day to prepare my breakfast and lunch. I remembered when I had that argument with her a few days back, and it filled me with a sense of shame. I wasn't very kind with my words, and despite her warnings and attempts to derail my trip, she still made sure I was taken care of. I heard the beep of my friend's car outside, and seeing that my grandma must have still been asleep, I just left her to rest, considering she must have woken up too early. I left her a note and packed my lunch. A good amount of rice and 4 pieces of chorizo, and I was off. By 7 a.m., we were still driving to pick up another classmate when the car broke down. It didn't take long for my friend to kickstart it again, but that should have been my first warning. When we finally stopped over at our friend's house, the last friend we were going to pick up, I had an intense feeling of worry wash over me for a moment. I didn't want to freak anybody out or cause a slight panic, but I also didn't want the worry to bother me for the rest of the trip. So I told my friend that maybe, just maybe, he should double check his car, his tires, engines, anything that might be off or not functioning properly. He just looked at me and laughed. He told me to trust him, that nothing was wrong. I was just letting my usual worry get to me. Loosen up, he said. Relax, he said. Have some fun, he said. Don't worry. When I asked the question, everybody just looked at me weirdly. Not quite the odd weird, but more, Jared, you're doing it again. Sort of weird. I didn't want to be the party pooper and whatnot, so I took his word for it. I trusted him that everything was fine, that there was nothing wrong with the car that broke down an hour ago. It was all good, right? It was, for a time. About 30 minutes into the drive, I had heard a sharp ringing in my left ear. We were about to make the turn to start driving up towards the peak. It had been the loudest ringing I ever heard. There was no explanation to it, I think. I don't ever recall ever having tinnitus problems, and even if I had, I didn't think it would be that bad. I had told one of my friends who was seated beside me, and the only thing they told me was that it could have been the pressure from my earbuds. Maybe I'd slept on them one time and now I'm paying the price for it. Maybe I did have tinnitus and I just never had it checked. One of my friends, Julie, who was seated on the other side of the back seat by the window, overheard the conversation and only looked at me. Julie was, well, she was the group's stars person. We called her the stars person because she always had her tarot cards and crystals and astrology readings equipped for any conversation. She had overheard me talking about the ringing I had heard in my left ear and gave me this odd look, like she wasn't sure what to say or feel about having heard me say it. I wanted to say something to probe her, maybe, have her validate any worry I had. There it was again. The worry. I had told myself time and time again that this was not going to hinder me at all. No worries today. However, almost everything had been a signal, a warning of some sort. My Lola is not around. The car broke down. The ringing in my ears. Surely they must have meant something. I turned to Julie, wanting to say something. I needed to say something. However, the rest of my friends seemed to enjoy the ride up. They were talking, blasting the radio. It seemed like a movie, really. They looked forward to this trip for weeks. I didn't want to ruin this for them. Julie looked at me expectantly. I should have known she was having her own doubts at the time when she heard me talking about the ringing. I saw it in her eyes. That knowing look. I only looked away, out the window, to see the rest of the town slowly become smaller the further we went up the hill. It was particularly sunny at that hour, around 11 a.m., and we had been driving for more than 5 hours already, with a few stops here and there. Our friend who was driving had told us to just have lunch in the car, and as he drove, so we did. I took out the food I had packed before I left home, and for some reason, as soon as I saw the rice and chorizo, my phone buzzed. Lala's name was on the notification telling me to go home. Seeing the message should have been enough for the worry to fully wash over me. I saw the words in the notification bar and felt a sense of quiet urgency, like I just wanted to turn around and drive down the hill. I couldn't do that. We were halfway into our destination, and I wasn't about to chicken out and tell them to turn back. I had no other excuse, too. No concrete truth or even a lie to convince them to drive back into town. I had read her message over and over again. Umuwi ka ng maaga, June. Huwag na kayong magtagal dyan. Nanaginip ako kanina. Naaabala na ako. I read it over and over again, an unease growing in my stomach. It felt heavy in the car, at least to me. Everyone else seemed to enjoy themselves, gossiping about some couple on campus and a girl who got pregnant in her graduating year. Sound seemed to muffle itself the more I thought and looked at my Lola's message. I closed my lunchbox, not bothering to eat a single piece as I feared I'd only end up hurling it outside the window. I felt sick to my stomach, a growing headache making itself known on my temples. I felt my heart start to race, beating against my chest as if wanting so much to be let out. I realized I felt the exact same way. I wanted to be out of the car too. I opened my phone and texted her back, wanting to reassure her that I was still okay. Mauuna na lang ako mamaya sa hapon. Love you, nanay. But then, a red exclamation mark. No signal. The message wasn't sent. Damn it, at this moment too? Julie had noticed the unease and peered over to me, asking if I was okay. She told me I had somehow gotten paler, like I've seen a ghost. My hands were trembling. Lola had a dream. What dream? Just reading that planted more seeds of doubt in me, and I sat there, bothered and anxious. Julie simply reached over with a bottle of water and told me to drink, to wash it down. She told me it could just be the altitude messing with my head. We were already high up by the time my cell service dropped to 0, and despite the worry, it felt reassuring she was looking out for me. I took the water bottle and slowly drank, taking deep breaths to calm myself down in the car. A few minutes passed and nothing seemed to be amiss. I still thought of my Lola's message, and it was like an itch in the back of my brain, a fly buzzing by my ear, the elephant's foot on my chest. That's when I heard our driver friend yell out. Everybody had looked at the road up front, and I could have sworn everybody saw what I saw. A woman, in white, in broad daylight. in the middle of the road, just standing and looking at us. She reached out with her arm, pointing at the car, at the driver mostly. It filled me with a sense of dread, seeing her. I did not see much of her face, only that I remember seeing sunken eyes, like she had none at all, and the dark markings around her neck, like old bruises. As quickly as we saw her, everything else happened too fast. The last thing I remember hearing was a loud screech of the car tires and feeling of tilting sideways. I looked out my side of the window only to see the bottom of the hill, way high up, the view of Santa Lucina below me. The car had swerved to the edge of a cliffside, with me on the side where the back of the car hung in a balancing act between life and death. None of us dared to move. I feared that a huge movement would weigh down on one side and the car would fully fall off the cliff. I heard Julie and our other friend cry and pray in the back seat, and our driver friend frantically starting the car. In a moment of quick clarity, I had quietly told them not to panic and slowly move their weight onto one side. Julie started, shifting ever so slowly to the other side where the road was. The weight slowly moved to a better side of the car. Julie had already opened the car door and jumped out. I had told my friend to follow Julie, and she did. The only other two people on the more dangerous side were me and the driver. I tried my hardest to crawl to the other side, but the impact had basically shaken me against the door where the car was hanging. A little movement and the car slowly creaked to the cliffside. I held my breath. Our friend was by the other side of the car door. I saw her turn to me, panic overtaking her features as she reached a hand out to me. She told me to take her hand and she will pull me out of the car as quickly as physics could even make it make sense. I had no time to think either, so I reached out for her. Just as I was about to hold on to her hand, our driver friend started to thrash in the car, as if he was struggling to breathe or something had been strangling him with the way his hands clutched at his neck. As the car moved a little more to the edge and I turned to my friend with her arm reaching out to me and swatted her hand away, yelling at them to try and get our driver friend out. Julie had sprung into action as quickly as she could, opening the passenger seat and using her weight to anchor the car onto the road. She slowly pulled our friend out of the driver's seat. I watched them move our friend out of the car. He still seemed out of it, like he was being possessed of some sort, moaning and groaning and gasping for air as Julie laid him out onto the road. It had been a little too late when I realized all that movement had pushed the car just a little more to the edge. Not to mention our friend's thrashing inside of the car had caused the car to shake and tilt a little more to the side. It was unfortunate, really. I thought of my Lola at that moment. The rice and chorizo and eggs she prepared just this morning. Her text message, the way I know she's at home, waiting alone, waiting for me, worrying for me. I looked at my friends for a moment and then I saw the time in the car, 11:48 a.m. Then I saw the sky. It felt like I was flying for a moment, and then I saw my friends look down at me. Only then I realized I wasn't. The sound of a crash, a weary and heavy pain, everything going black, and then I stopped worrying. I think all of the worries I have accumulated over the years left me. I didn't feel anything else after either. Then I'm here, giving you all a speech in the form of a story. To be honest, I don't even know what lesson you'd like to take away from the speech. To worry? To not worry so much. Some things really aren't in our control sometimes, no matter the warnings. Well, not that you can hear me anyway. You watch everyone turn their tassels on this day, knowing I am the only one who can't. I have nowhere to go after turning the tassel. There is no tassel, no diploma, no future to look forward to. I will return to the backstage, in the dark, in the shadows of those who used to care for me, of those who used to worry for me. Sometimes I still see them, driving past me on the cliffside. I would make sure they didn't see her or anything else to the best of my abilities, just to make sure they wouldn't worry as I had. I wonder if they made it out. I wonder if my Lola got my message. It would have been nice to see the peak of Santa Lucina. I guess I'll never reach it now.
And that was episode 8 of season 2 Tales from the Catalogs, TALUMPATI. I hope everybody enjoyed that episode, even if it's a little bit on the emotional side. And I hope its message came across all of our listeners. Don't forget to follow our socials at Amidst Posteriors on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also have a TikTok at Amidst Posterior Official. It's at Amidst Posterior OF to see more Tales from the Catalogs content. But thank you so much again for joining us on this episode, and we hope to see you in the next one. Bye!